Hi, Krithika. Welcome back to the Animal Turn podcast. It's great to have you back on the show.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I had a really nice time chatting with you a few years ago.
How would you imagine re-animalization, I guess, manifesting? And I mean, if you could put this into policies and laws and make this an actual like political, if you could make it manifest, what do you think it would result in? Like, how would you see the world changing?
I don't know, and this is not that paper wasn't written as a kind of like a practical. This is manifesto type of paper, but it's more of a set of thought experiments. And there so a while after I wrote that paper, I I've stumbled upon some literature on which goes under the kind of the broad rubric of utopianism and imaginaries and how utopian thinking is about trying to stretch the boundaries of the possible or the limits of the possible.
Mm,
It's to make the unthinkable thinkable, and then, like Escobar puts it, make so then you move it from thinkable to the credible, and then from the credible it goes to the practical. Right? So there are multiple steps, but if you as long as you leave this in the realm of the unthinkable, you're not ever going to get anywhere.
yeah.
And at this point, like you pointed out at the beginning of this conversation, that even saying animalization or re-animalization is still quite unthinkable, right? Um, so I don't know if you're yet there at the level of, you know, at kind of the place where we can think about policies and
Mm.
what our societies might actually look like. But I think we are there at a point where we can actually allow ourselves to think and, imagine differently. And I have some examples in that paper, you know,
Could you
where, and
could
I
you give
kind
us one of those examples?
yeah, I kind of build on Val Plumwood's writing on, her encounter with a crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
She points out that like we are just not the idea that we can be food for other animals is just again it's in the realm of the unthinkable. Now, interestingly, Val Plumwood's work and that particular piece of work has been used quite widely to argue against veganism or vegetarianism, to saying that it's quite natural to eat other animals. But actually, the point that she's making is quite different.
Mm.
She's saying that we can also be eaten, which that part of her work has just kind of remained completely unseen or undiscussed. I guess the reasons why is also to do with politics, since the subject matter of this season is politics. So anyway, so on this paper I try and do that. So you know, so what happens if we think of ourselves as food? And when I kind of bring this up in class or in seminars, people always think, they think about permaculture, they think about like giving your body to the earth and being buried in a cardboard coffin after you die, or about using your waste for compost. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. It's about being killable
Mm.
as food for other animals, and whether they be big animals, charismatic animals like wolves and tigers, but or smaller ones like bed bugs and mosquitoes. Can we learn to live if we want to use other animals and other organisms as food? Then surely, just like all animals eat. So what you said earlier about casualty is built is a way of that's it's unavoidable, it's inevitable, is what you said earlier, right? And and which is and it's in a way that you find that sentiment being echoed in in dominant narratives about how humans are also other animals, saying that we're also other animals. So it makes sense for us to eat other animals. It makes sense for us to build buildings because or dams because beavers build dams,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then what that overlooks is that it's the other way. It's the other side of it, right? Which is that beavers may build dams, but then they get eaten up by I don't know what eats beavers, but they subject themselves to they're subject to other things. Um, um, okay, I'm not being very good with examples here, but that while animals may eat other animals, they're also eaten by other animals.
Yeah. And sometimes they even eat their own young, or they do, etc. And I think you're talking here to kind of the double standards that we often have. So we'll say, oh, but we're doing this because animals do that, so we're animal. But then we kind of pull into focus these exclusions with some things that we find objectionable, right? Like other animals eating their own young or eating each other, or incest. There's a whole bunch of kind of things that other animals do that we would consider in some of our societies to be objectionable, right? To say, oh no, we shouldn't do that. But we kind of pull on specific threads when we want to make an argument for using animals, and we pull on other threads for when we want to say that we're better than animals and we shouldn't be comparing ourselves. So it's an interesting kind of play.